Hi, my name is Shirley Scott. I'm an animal communicator and a clairvoyant. We are hosting a forum for discussion with working professionals and independent energy healers, each of them living and working a life of service to the world. During each program, we intend to bring you many glimpses and in-depth conversations from the world of frequently misunderstood phenomena to increasingly mainstream concepts. As it turns out, the paranormal is way more normal than we ever thought. It is our intention that we bring you knowledge you need when you need it. I believe in this life and the next. We are all in this together. Life is as bright as we make it. The producers, myself, and our guests ask that you watch with an open mind. Nearly 20 years ago, when I started my spiritual journey, I wished for a program like this, and now I've been guided to help create it and share it with you. Hi everybody, welcome. I'm Shirley Scott, your host, and we are talking today to Pat Dougherty, who is a chiropractor and author, and he does so much more and is so interesting. Hi Pat, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me here, Shirley.
It's an honor.
Looking forward to this.
I am so interested at what you do. Now, you're a chiropractor.
Correct.
Okay. Most people know what chiropractors do.
Or they think they do.
Or they think they do. Very good. So I would like you to kind of explain to our viewers what it is you do. What's the chiropractor do? What kind? I know there are different kinds of chiropractors too, are there not?
Absolutely.
Okay, because I know a lot of people think, oh, they crack your bones.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. But you do other things too. So let's start with the chiropractic practice that you have. What do you do? How do you do it?
Well, chiropractic really is very misunderstood because people have preconceptions about us being bone crunchers and bone crackers, as you mentioned, and it's really much more complex than that. And there are so many kinds of different chiropractors.
Oh.
Some who do pretty much the same 7 adjustments on everybody they see. It takes a couple minutes. And then there's some of us who have thought about it and evolved into a little more than that, just because we've seen things that work, things that don't work, and we're trying to refine it to be as effective as possible. And what I've ended up doing is I do some adjustments with my hand. We call them adjustments.
Okay.
Adjustments of subluxations of the spine, a subluxation being a spot in the spine where the vibrational frequency isn't right. It's either too high or too low, and it blocks the energy from flowing through the body. Okay. So you can use your hand to restore a good frequency to that vibration. You can use an instrument to restore a good frequency to that vibration. And basically everything I'm doing is meant to restore an optimal vibrational frequency to the spine so that it doesn't block the information to and from the nervous system.
Okay, so and I'm going to hopefully explain this a little more to the viewers, and if I'm wrong, you let me know.
Yeah.
But if there's a blockage, like if they, because people say, oh, my back's out, or if there's a blockage of some kind where there's a misalignment, that you fix that so the energy flows up and down the spine better.
Yeah, and
in layman's terms.
That's it to a great degree, but it's got less to do with a bone being out and more to do just with the vibration. We're all pure energy.
Right.
We're all just like zinging around, positives and negatives, and bouncing off each other and ourselves. And all we really want is for that free-form quantum motion to be able to happen. Okay. And so it's not so much about a bone being out and we got to move it from here over to here or vice versa or whatever. It's just like restore that vibration. And it's not so much about a back being out and the sense of discomfort, pain, whatever. Because if you look at our nervous system, and this is all based around nervous system, because the nervous system is what perceives the world for you and then makes adaptations to the external environment. And you want it to make the best adaptations possible.
Okay.
Well, so if we're going to do that, we need to have that flow, that energy, and pain and discomfort is only about 10 or 15% of the nervous system. And then you have this whole, like if you have a pie here, it'd be one little slice of pie is the pain discomfort phase. And so there is so much more that happens in the nervous system. And when you start taking that holistic viewpoint, you realize if people wait till they're in pain to come see me or anybody, they're probably for a long time already not functioning at an optimal level.
Okay. So the body just continues to be in pain to tell you need to get in, but by then there's already
something's been going on a long time.
Okay.
Yeah, pain is like end of the road signal where your body's screaming at you, your brain's screaming at you. Stop, listen, do something different. It's time to make a change.
Yeah, because with energy, and you know, we all know we're energy, if it's not flowing right, you're not going to get certain messages, or you're not going to function right because the energy is blocked someplace. So
yeah, and although we all know this, what we don't realize is how much we lose track of it. We walk through life and there are so many things that we're not at this optimal level. We're way down here, but we're used to it. We are programmed. We are programmed to the max. We're programmed intentionally by media, by our government, by so many things, but we're also programmed because our brain adheres to the principles of accommodation. And like Hilton's law of accommodation specifically refers to pain.
okay.
And that means if the brain sends the pain signals out, it sends signals to the nociceptors, which are pain fibers within the body. If you send signals out to those fibers and activate them, and then you ignore them long enough outside of an extremely painful situation, the pain fibers are going to be subdued and turned off for a while. That's the accommodation to you ignoring the signal from the brain.
Okay.
But we do that in all phases of life. We do that with food. People eat foods that are bad for them. They eat the refined sugars, the refined carbohydrates. Most people shouldn't be eating dairy because it's going to irritate them. It's going to create inflammation. Biochemical processes happen in the body in relationship to the foods you eat. But we accommodate, and we stop realizing that we're uncomfortable because of the foods we ate. We accommodate to them.
I see.
We accommodate to emotions also, though. We have a painful experience, and perhaps there's an emotion attached to that, or we just have a painful emotional experience, and if we don't deal with it in a way that diffuses it, it becomes an energetic black hole and becomes a physical presence in our energetic quantum field. And that's an accommodation also.
Okay,
So
because we learn to ignore that kind of
Yeah.
instead of dealing with it.
Yeah, and
Okay.
ignoring is basically what I'm saying with the accommodation. You ignore till you don't notice it anymore. And then we're not healthy. You can't be healthy if you have energetic blockages caused by your emotions, by physical injuries, by the foods you eat, the toxins around you. And so that's what we're really trying to, in my mind, my practice, what I'm trying to do is get people to the point where they stop paying so much attention to pain, and they start paying attention to how can I get my nervous system to function at the highest level possible so that it'll make the best adaptations to the external environment around me, which is highly toxic,
Sure.
and allow me to thrive.
Okay, so when somebody comes to you, you do more than just adjust their back,
Sometimes.
okay? But you look at the whole person.
Sooner or later, if they're around long enough, I do. And sometimes
Okay.
I do it just from the beginning. I'll give people the option. They
Okay.
call and make an appointment. We ask them, what do you want to do? You just want to get out of pain? Do you want me to evaluate you from every aspect that I'm aware of to allow you to know what's in the way of you functioning at the highest level?
Wow.
They decide, they fill out the big paperwork or the little paperwork, and then we evaluate them on either the little musculoskeletal level or musculoskeletal plus allergy sensitivity, organs and glands and toxins in the body,
Wow.
emotional stuff, electromagnetics. And it's their choice though. And then if I am just adjusting them for musculoskeletal things, and they're just not getting better, I have to stop and say, I can't heal anybody. You can only heal you, and if you have these things in the way, it's not going to work.
Right, right.
And so then we start addressing some of the other issues, or they go away.
Because many of the issues that we have as far as energy blocks are our food, or the things that we do in our life that we don't acknowledge are bad for us. And we all know when something is bad for us. I mean, we do, but we still do them. So
you know until you accommodate, until you learn to ignore it.
there you go. There you go. That's true. So that's very interesting that you do that for people, and why we want the audience to know that, you know, there's just more to your chiropractic than just adjusting people if they need it or if they would like it. That's wonderful. So what's your book about? I hear you wrote a book.
I actually wrote 2 books. One's
Okay.
co-authored
Okay.
with a gentleman, Charles Lightwalker, who's
Okay.
a shaman here in town and multidisciplinary practice. He does a lot of things for the people who come to see him. We wrote a book called Quantum Healing, the Synergy of Chiropractic and Reiki.
Oh, wow.
And in that book, one of my big goals in life here is to get people to understand chiropractic better.
Okay.
Because so many people have this false view of what chiropractic can be, of just something where my back hurts, crunch it, and I'll feel better. And it's really about optimization of the nervous system to allow you to thrive. And so we decided to write this book to convey that chiropractic truly is nothing other than an energy modality.
Okay.
And our way of doing that was to combine Reiki plus chiropractic treatments. We did 3 case studies, 3 different people. We did 3 treatments in no more than 2 weeks, where either we do the Reiki first and the chiropractic, or the chiropractic and the Reiki, but they'd be immediately following each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then we gave quality of life questionnaires to people rather than pain questionnaires.
Wow.
So that we could see if their quality of life was being affected by these 3 treatments they got.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully for us, all 3 of them, every single category either stayed the same or went up, and most of them went up in the quality of life areas.
Wow.
With just 3 treatments. And the other part of the book, though, Charles wrote a little bit about Reiki because that's his area. I don't really do Reiki.
Okay.
And I wrote a fair amount about the history of chiropractic philosophy, because the gentleman who founded chiropractic and his son who advanced it quite a bit both wrote extensively philosophical, theosophical type writings about chiropractic, where it came from, what it is, and referencing extensively innate intelligence, which is your inborn intelligence, in connection with the universal intelligence, and then the toxins, thoughts, and traumas, which we kind of alluded to with the food and the emotions. And they just built this big philosophical bubble to put chiropractic in, and it's kind of been lost because chiropractors got kind of in league with the insurance companies, and then at first that was a great thing back in the 70s. They got a whole bunch of money and they had as many visits as they wanted. They could do anything they wanted, but slowly over time the insurance companies started tightening the noose and telling the chiropractors more and more what they had to do, how they could do it, until now most people think of chiropractic as a pain intervention, when it was so much more than that from the very beginning. And so all I'm really trying to do is, in that book, is move chiropractic from this modern day pain intervention theme back to where it belongs before it gets lost completely.
Okay, so the people that really came up with chiropractic were already knew that it was connected with the body, mind, soul, universe, and it was supposed to have all this energy working together. That's very interesting because I didn't know that, and I used to be a chiropractic assistant way when I was younger. And I didn't realize that because, you know, he didn't do that. I mean, he did a lot of good chiropractic, but he didn't. I don't know if he ever taught me. I had never heard that was the connection before. So that's very interesting that it was all of this to begin with.
Above, down, inside out. That is famous chiropractic saying. Above, the universal intelligence, down into the innate intelligence, so above, down, and then you manifest your healing from the inside, and then you can express it on the outside, above, down, inside out.
I love
I
that.
think that's from the 20s, I believe. I think
Ah.
Stevenson is the one who actually wrote that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's really great. So now our viewers, of course, are understanding chiropractic a little bit more. So
I
that,
should certainly hope so.
and many, yeah, I hope so. Many of my clients and friends go to chiropractors because it does make them feel not just pain-free, but they feel almost lighter when they're done, when they go to a very good chiropractor
Yeah.
who's natural about it and really gives them that extra energy. And they go to chiropractors who, like you, say, you've got to eat better, you've got to, do all these things. So your first book, and then you have another one?
Yes, I do.
Aha, which one is this?
Well, that one is about health also. It's called Do You Want to Get Better? The Future of Healthcare.
Okay.
I firmly believe that we're in a time where radical shifts are happening, and I think those radical shifts are going to be as much a part of the healthcare in our modern world as any other area, because we bought into, about 100 years ago, strongly bought into this, what's called the allopathic system, drugs and surgery.
Yeah. Okay.
We bought into that, and people ended up with this warped view that fits the old-time physics notion of Newton, Sir Isaac Newton, where A affects B. And so if you got a bad gallbladder, you take it out. A, bad gallbladder, B, no gallbladder. And which
okay.
totally ignores this whole thing we talked about for the first 15 minutes or so, where we're looking at this quantum field of energy that's us, and us just being part of a larger quantum field of energy. There is no A to B in reality. And so when we start looking at it that way, we're not helping people be as healthy as they can possibly be. All we're doing is hiding symptoms, taking away things that might cause a symptom. And so I'm firmly convinced that that's on its way out. There's no way, not only individuals can't exist that way, our planet can't exist that way.
Right.
We have to look beyond that. We have to start going to A goes to B, but C, D, E, X, double X, infinity. And once we view it like that, then we can let the chaos just kind of order itself, and we'll see order out of it. And we can start healing ourselves and each other. So this book is kind of about that viewpoint, where I wrote a fairly long philosophical treatise that's based on a lot of chiropractic principles and, that above, down, inside, out concept, and universal intelligence and innate intelligence and all these things. But then what I also did was I interviewed 10 people from my offices in Spokane, Washington.
Okay.
I interviewed 10 people from our area, the Spokane Coeur d'Alene area, and they're all alternative healthcare practitioner types. There's hypnotherapists, there's the shaman, Charles Lightwalker, I told you about.
Right.
Healing keyway practitioner, emotional code practitioner, just our DNA activation, life coaches, just people who are doing toe reading, all these different things that so many people wouldn't even think of as healing interventions.
Wow.
But the fact of the matter is, they are things that don't coerce the body to be rid of a symptom. They coerce the person to find a way to actually heal themselves. Because again, I don't heal anybody, you don't heal anybody, nobody heals anybody except themselves.
Right.
But we all need help at times.
Right. We all need that little push, or that maybe that idea, or somebody looking a little deeper for us, because there are times that we can't see our own stuff. So
Right.
we need that help. And I know, sometimes when I sit and watch TV and I see these commercials, oh, this pill will cure this, but here are the side effects. I think, the side effects are worse than the disease, because there's so much stuff out there. And we don't need pills. We need to find, like you say, you have to get to the source of what's causing the symptom. Is that right? I mean, it's the
absolutely.
source.
And then you have to realize you need somebody who can help you address that source, and that's what these interviews are about. It's 10 people who don't really have much use for prescribing a pill, even if they were licensed to, and
Right.
some of them were.
Mm-hmm.
But they're more interested in, how do we release all these energetic blockages to allow the innate healing ability express itself in the nervous system to come up to the best strategic adaptation possible for the stresses in your life. And once we do that, and it's interesting because these 10 people, you start to see themes. Like, very few of them had like the happy, well-adjusted childhood. There was like odd things in all of them. And so you start questioning, what is it? One chapter is all about the thematic links I found in the interviews of the 10 people. And then I wrote about that. And so it's like these links you see about their childhood and other things that, because what makes a person go down that path when you're living in a society that does its best to mute intuitive flashes and encourage you to buy into this allopathic model.
Right.
And
right.
so that was an interesting chapter in itself. And I had one of the practitioners also interview me for one of the chapters in there.
Wow. And where can people get this book?
Well, you can get it at my office. That's where I've sold most of them.
Oh, good.
But it's
okay.
also available at Auntie's Bookstore in downtown Spokane, and it's also available on Amazon, both as a paperback book and as an ebook.
Oh, good.
And
okay.
if you're an Amazon Prime member, you don't even have to pay. You can just borrow it from the lending library and read either of them. So.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Because, you know, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to get out to people. There are so many different ways that they can heal themselves, and it works. I mean, it really does. You don't have to take the pill. You don't have to, sit there in pain thinking, I have gone to every doctor in the world, and all they've done is giving me more drugs, and none of it's helping. Alternative medicine is really up and coming, I think, and it goes into what is, you dig deeper into somebody than just a questionnaire. What's been, has your father had diabetes, has your mother had heart condition, You guys probably do that, but it's also what's going on in your life. What's going on here that we can help you with.
Okay.
So,
and that's one of the hard parts. People are so, get right back to programming, conditioning. People are so programmed to want that magic pill, that silver bullet, just the easy answer. And a lot of people get discouraged when they hear that. I think they need to make a consistent effort to be healthy. It's
hard.
If you eat good 50% of the time, and a lot of people do this, I'll tell them, you shouldn't eat these foods anymore, and they'll come back, I've done pretty good at that. And I say, how are you feeling? I still hurt. It's like, well, it's not a pretty good thing. You either make up your mind that I'm going to do everything I can do to allow my vibrancy to express at the highest level, or I'm going to settle for something less. And people, they've grown up thinking that they get to settle. There's always something to take away the negative in their life, and they don't have to work at it. And they look at it as work instead of this joyous exploration of a pathway.
Right.
And that's something I think all of us who do alternative type things have to deal with, undoing that expectation of instant gratification.
Yeah, because when you tell somebody, oh, you shouldn't eat, pasta or gluten products because it's going to do something to your body. I know a lot of my friends go, I can't do that. I love my bread,
Yeah.
And so it is hard for people to, especially in this day and age, to eat healthier. But, and some of the foods that are modified.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean,
another huge problem I think the media's just scratched the surface of how deadly, how incredibly horrific these GMO foods are going to be for not only the individual but the planet. And when the information comes out, we have so many big corporations, we have so much money out there that wants to fight it because they want to keep the ball rolling and make their money. And people aren't doing what's best for the planet, they aren't doing what's best for the individual. And people who don't spend a lot of effort finding that out, it's hard to convince them that GMOs are harmful for them.
Exactly, and I think there are some things coming out now. Thankfully, there are some articles coming out about the GMOs and what they're doing. But we just have to, it's a shift in people's conscious level, because I think our society right now is so used to being told what to do and what not to do, and you know, you see these films in the future where people are just kind of robots walking around.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting there. It was sad to say.
Yeah.
And we need to wake up to that. So.
Don't you think, though, one of the most important elements of waking up to is getting there?
It is.
Getting to, I mean, it's like you can't have dawn without darkness.
You can't.
And,
Yes.
you know, the more things get really wacky out there, the more people have to wake up and open their eyes and really analyze it.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. I tell people, you know, people don't want to hear about, you know, on the news, say, you know, child abuse or murders or something like that. They say, that's so dark, we shouldn't hear about it. But you have to put light on it before something can be done with it. And I equate that to, if we put light on it, it's like bringing the positive in so that we can correct it. So.
I totally agree with that, but I think it brings up another one of the problems, is people who dwell on something. I don't know. Tell me if you feel this way. I believe we are the product of our experiences and our thoughts. So consequently, if we spend 70-80% of our time in dark, negative thoughts, our life is going to manifest as a dark, negative thing.
Absolutely.
And so we have to have that awareness, and we have to find tools, and we have to find ways to shed light on the horrific things that are happening, and at the same time find a way to remove ourselves from the heaviness of that and turn it into the light of, here's what we can do to change the world.
Absolutely.
And people spend way too much time on
They spend,
negative.
yeah, they
Some
spend
people.
way too much, yeah, some people do, they spend way too much time on the negative part of it instead of saying, okay, this isn't the best thing in the world that's happening, but what can I do to change it? And digging out, yeah, absolutely.
And it happens on the personal level too. You know, I've been an expert at this in my life. I mean, the people who go around and say, you're so stupid. I can't believe you did that. And then
Right.
you start swearing, you stomp your feet for an hour, and it's like you've just put in an hour of negative input into the creation of a better person.
Exactly. People need to say, wow, you know, that might not have been the smartest thing to do, but I learned from it, so I'm not going to do it again, and move on. Yeah, there's too much.
And if I do, I'll learn quicker next time.
Exactly. There's way too much, we put way too much judgment on ourselves. And that's not healthy either. I bet you find that in your practice, that if you could get people not to judge themselves so much, or to feel better about themselves.
Yeah, that's those emotional blockages you talked about. And I do chakra release work as part of my day. I do adjustments that focus around the chakra release. And you find people who they have created identity relative to one of their chakras with the dark part of the chakra that's not, you know, like the fear from the gallbladder manifesting in the solar plexus that doesn't allow them to ever have a relationship, or those kind of things. And some people just cling so tightly to these identities, and they can't stop talking about them. They can't stop thinking about them. So how are they going to release them? It's just that's just like a little anecdotal note of how this all works with. Whether it's on that personal level, the global level, it's just, you have to be aware of the darkness, and then you have to be able to go and turn it into the lightness and make that the preponderance of thoughts in your life.
Exactly. So talking about chakras, because those are our energy systems, do most people know about that when they come to you? Do a lot of your clients actually know about the energy that you work with, or the energy of the body? Do you find that, or?
That's a good question. And it's probably about 50-50. I try to get out, I try to speak, do demonstrations, things like that.
Okay. Throughout the community?
Yeah, and so consequently I get people who come to me who say, wow, you're doing something different, I want this. But then you get the people being a chiropractor, and with the societal programming of what a chiropractor is, who come in and say, it hurts right there, push. and so, yeah, and those, so everything, whether it's number 2 there or number 1 who comes in because they've seen something and they want that, it's still about communication, being able to communicate the philosophical values that I think are at the core of this kind of energetic work.
Right.
And you're just starting in one place with one group of people in a different place, so sometimes they know a lot more than the others. And I always ask before I do emotional clearings, my first question is, do you know what a chakra is? And a surprising amount of people know.
Oh, good.
And a
Okay.
surprising amount of people go, yes, I work on mine.
Oh, good.
Great.
Good. Well,
Great.
let me
You got
help
homework
you.
when we're done.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, and I hear from a lot of people, doctors, people feel like cattle with a lot of mainstream doctors. They go in, the doctor's with them 5 minutes, they come out, and it's $350 or whatever it is. So it sounds like you spend more time with the patients, and you really care about your patients.
Well, I should hope everybody really cares. but spending more time. Yeah, I've been told, I've done a fair amount of chiropractic coaching in my plus 20 years, and I've been told by practice management people over and over, you can't spend this kind of time. You're never going to make any money, and blah, blah, blah. And what I found is you really don't need to make a whole bunch of money with everybody you see to make money, so it's kind of a moot point. But I do spend more time. We schedule in 15-minute segments, and I try to keep it to 10 minutes. And there's times when I have to do more. And initially, I'll spend, depending whether they come in with hurts their push or I want to know what's wrong with me, I'll spend anywhere from 20-25 minutes to an hour plus the very first time I see somebody.
Sure.
Sometimes I don't even treat them the first time I see them because there is so much to listen to. Some people, part of their healing is just being heard, and so you can't rush them. Other people you can kind of rush through and you get the information.
Sure.
You treat them on the first time, all this. But there's one of my favorite chiropractors of all time, though you wouldn't want to be adjusted by him. One of the most vigorous, thorough adjusters you would ever see is Fred Barge. He died recently, but he has all these just amazing analogies and stories. But one thing he said over and over is the only drug that ever withstood the test of time is the placebo.
Oh,
I truly believe it.
Absolutely.
It's the one. And what you find is people come in because you do spend time, because you do listen.
Mm-hmm.
They'll come back the second time and you haven't even treated them. And they'll say, you know what, Doc? I'm not sure what you did, but I feel so much better. And you know what it is? It's hope. That's all the placebo really is the hope that there is a way for me to get better.
And the hope and the listening, because I have a friend who has gone into her doctor with some pain, knee pain actually, and talked to the doctor, and then she leaves and nothing's done, and she goes back and she talks to him again, and she literally says, he's not hearing what I'm saying. He's not hearing me.
Yeah.
And so she's not getting better.
Yeah.
And here's a pain pill, go home and see if it helps. But she really wants him to understand how it hurts, where it hurts, and he just says, don't do this, don't do that, and here's a pill, goodbye.
Yeah, and people come to me with those stories all the time. There's a reason they went to that doctor in the first place, though. It's because they're on a cusp maybe, but they're still buying into that allopathic model of point A, point B, drug, surgery, something's got to fix it. And but that kind of attitude you were expressing, that they're expressing about that doctor, is what's going to push this change. And and I'm sure you've noticed this in your work. There's never been a better time for change. This is it. Energetically, things are really good out there. Even though, and part of it is that other thing you said, where all the bad stuff's piled up to here, which just increases the wave of this energy that's going to wash over it, and then we'll have a big wave coming downhill. But people like that who go in and they say, I don't think they're hearing me. They just give me a different pill every time. Oh, that didn't work. Try this one, and those people are going to push the wave over. They're going to push the crest and come down the other side. And it'll be impossible, I think, to ever go back to that drug surgery model once we have this epiphany about energy, which is taking place.
And this, I agree, this change that's going on in the world, the universe, the energies, is moving faster than you and I have ever seen it move before. And some people are, they come to me, and I'm sure they come to you and say, I don't know what's going on with me, but I'm not feeling real right or something. And we can help them through that, through these natural ways, these natural, expressions of, well, yeah, we agree, and this is why. And it's all energy. It's all energy. So, yeah. So Pat, we were just talking about, the energy and people, getting to the cusp of what you were saying and coming down the other side. There are some communities that don't have chiropractors like you in them. There are cities, and our viewers are from all over the world. So if they don't have somebody like you, or they can't go in to see somebody like you, and they go in and see a doctor and they, take a pill, is that going to help them heal? Do you think that they will actually take the pill? I mean, this cusp of, how long do you think that's going to take, and what do you think those people can do that don't have somebody like you?
Well, I don't believe in absolutes, so I can't say that a pill is never going to allow or cause healing. But I think what happens for the most part is if you take a medication, you are violating nature's laws and trying to supersede them with man's laws. And I think when you talk about nature's laws, you go down to above, down, inside, out. You've reversed that order. You've gone outside in, and then trying to reestablish a connection up there where all the we're all born with infinite knowledge. We're all born with infinite knowledge from the, whatever you want to call this, God, Spirit, and people call it a million things. I don't think it matters. But we're born with the infinite access, I guess we should say, to the knowledge from this universal intelligence. And we spend a lifetime on learning it. Now, the healing process, I believe, is restoring that access to the universal intelligence. And you do that by recognizing that there is man's laws and nature's laws. Man's laws are about pills. They're about GMOs and all this stuff. And they just don't, they get in the way. They disturb the frequency of nature's laws. And we can't be as healthy as possible that way. So I think pills can obviously make you feel better, because we look at that pie of the nervous system as the little slice that's pain. And so since that's our perceptual playground, we'll think, yeah, I'm better. But is that healing? To me, that's not healing. And I think just if we go into a biochemical explanation, you can't heal with the pill, because what the pill is doing is in some way, whether it's to deal with inflammation, pain, whatever, and again, I'm sure there's some exceptions, but you're turning off the nervous system signals. And when you turn off the nervous system signals, you have right away put this big blockade in the way of your innate knowledge communicating with the spiritual knowledge. The physical body cannot communicate with the spiritual body when you have turned off, when you have basically had the San Francisco earthquake of 1989 and collapsed the freeway. You can't get to Oakland anymore.
Okay.
And in this, that's funny, I just made Oakland into the spiritual center.
The center there, yeah.
Yeah, and it is getting better there, so that's okay.
Yeah.
But and so I think that's the problem with medications, and that's not to say people should never take medications. I won't ever advocate that, and I realize that drugs and surgery save people's lives, because crisis care is necessary. People get in these crises where if some immaculate intervention didn't happen, they died. And so a lot of people live because of that. But when it comes to actually healing yourself, even if you survive a crisis through an intervention with a heart surgery or whatever, then you need to heal. And that's where, maybe you just need to separate the pills or the surgery, whatever, from the healing. And so you have to realize, just because I feel better now and the doctor said, congratulations, you still have healing to do.
Right.
And that's
right.
when you have to go out and get that help. You have to find somebody like me, like you, like anybody. And if they're not in your community, I'll finally answer your question. So, if they're not in your community, one of the beauties that has sped up, I think, the energy that's flowing so strongly in the world today that's allowing so many changes to happen is the internet. Now, you can go on the internet, you can Google alternative healing, you can Google alternative chiropractic, you can Google faith healing, you can Google DNA activation or shamanism, all these things. You can just Google them and you can start to get some idea. And then you can find out if any of these people exist in your town. You can go out, you can buy books.
And many of this healing too can be done long distance, can it not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I know people who work. In fact, you worked via telephone. You work long distance. A lot of people do that, and so yeah, a lot can be done that way. I did my first long distance session ever because it never occurred to me to do it until someone asked me to do it. Yeah, so and it had great results. So I know absolutely it can be done, and I also think so much of this started in our society with Louise Hay,
Mm-hmm.
and I think if you have no access to anything else, if you get her, what would it be, her Heal Your Life book, I think there was Heal Your Body and Heal Your Life, Heal Your Body, but both of them have all these lists in it of symptoms in the body, and then it tells you what those symptoms mean. And it's just amazing to go through that and think of everything you've ever had in your body and go through this list and see if the emotions she's attaching to those are correct, because most people find they're very correct. They had this emotion, this experience when they started having this symptom, this pain, whatever. And so for people who have no access to anything else, and a lot of other people have taken and written books with the same kind of charts in them since then.
Right.
And if you do that, I think that alone, increasing your awareness of the emotional trauma you've been through that correlates with the physical traumas that you're going through or have been through, can give you the insights to start working on yourself also.
Right. And people need to understand too that our brain is so powerful.
Yeah.
Because if you can give somebody a pill that's a sugar pill and say this is going to cure something, if they believe it enough, they will cure themselves by taking a sugar pill.
Yeah.
And so what we have to understand is, because we're human, most of us don't know the power of the brain. And so if it's a physical thing, we feel like it's more real than something that's not, that we can't
absolutely.
see. So I think that's part of this pill taking thing also, isn't it? I mean, people do that just because they need that.
I think it's one of the facets of the allopathic system is people are programmed into wanting that physical thing. If it's not physical, it's not real.
Yeah.
But then I think that goes back to what I said earlier, where I believe we're all born into this life with total access to universal intelligence, and
Absolutely.
we spend a lifetime unlearning it. And then as we get older, if we're lucky, we get spurred by the relationships we have with other people to start relearning and start bringing ourselves closer to the intuitive knowledge, which can replace the ego knowledge and really move us forward in life.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Pat, a lot of us, I mean, most of us that are in this field, we always relate back to energy. Energy is what runs everything. We have, equated it to electricity. It goes out there and, it lights the lights. And but how do we explain to the public that doesn't know about energy, that wants to know more about energy, that, Einstein's theory of relativity works? How do we know that it works long distance?
Well, I think the energy question is really interesting, because even though the public has started to buy into energy in many ways, it's probably with a very superficial, cliched understanding of like yeah, we're all energy, and quantum physics and E equals mc squared and all these things that don't really make sense, but they make us feel comfortable that, yeah, everything's energy. Now, to really understand what it is, I'm not sure I understand. I'm not sure anybody understands totally, but we do have things that illustrate it. We do have things like putting a bunch of monks in a lead box and having them pray for someone on a different continent and seeing physiological changes coming at the moment those monks are praying. We see things like that. We see things where there's a person you can take a piece of a person, as I believe maybe the tongue, and you can put it in a petri dish. Now the tongue is part of a quantum field. Say if it's my tongue, that is me. And so it has all the information of my body in that tongue.
Okay.
And it's all there in some way. And so consequently, that piece of tongue can be used to regenerate probably a whole human even. And that doesn't mean we understand the energy anymore, but we're getting these illustrations of the fact that it does work. And I think what we need now is more illustrations so that it stops being such a superficial understanding of we're all energy, and it's something that people can embrace more readily because it becomes more real to them, like the pill. And I think that's one of our major endeavors as we try to move away from allopathic care to a true wellness care model is how do we communicate in a convincing way that energy is real? How do we get people to see it with their own eyes and start putting it in the same framework they put a pill in? And I know that's why I was talking earlier about we're out there doing demonstrations, and these are kind of crude compared to, because you can actually see the energy here, but Charles and I have been doing energy demonstrations where he does Reiki. He's not touching anybody, but I am. I'm using little instruments to put quick little impulses into places in the spine, and we can demonstrate how people's physiology changes tremendously while we do that. They have less stiffness. They move more freely after just a few minutes of doing this, and it might be better just to show those demonstrations with only Reiki that doesn't touch, because people understand what I'm doing with the impulses into the skeleton a lot better than they do the Reiki portion. But I don't know that at this point there's any really clear-cut, succinct way of telling people what that energy is.
Okay. Well, and I know even when Einstein's theory of relativity, when he was doing all the, the huge problem on the board, and it took him years to get to the end, they said when he got to the very end and he got the answer, even he said, wow, God threw a curveball in it, it's free will, which is energy, which is, even after he did this whole thing, it's more or less like, this is what I came up with, but it's really not set in stone yet, because everything changes. Everything changes. And I try to tell people energy is like when you see the heat waves coming off the ground or stuff. That's energy. That's energy. And if you can equate that to telepathy.
When you see the orbs in a photograph.
When you see the orbs in a photograph,
Those kind of things. And and if you go back to the Newtonian physics versus quantum physics, there is a realization that things affect other things far away, and it's not just that A to B thing. And I think a lot of people are buying into that. It would be wonderful if we could just come up with a demonstration where we could show somebody over here going, and a butterfly falling off a stick in China.
In China, yeah. Well, and I also equate, there's certain conscious levels. The human conscious level is felt around the world. And I equate it to maybe an animal communicator. I say, if you say to any dog, come here, boy, whether it's a boy or a girl, the dog in the dog conscious level equates that to, oh, I'm going to come to you, because it's a friendly, greeting, it's a friendly call. So they recognize that on a level that all dogs recognize that. So, and it's energy, that's energy. The voice is energy.
Right.
And the thoughts are energy.
That's what we have to realize. Everything's energy. And so
Right.
consequently, anything can be energy healing. It doesn't matter whether it's thoughts, voice, touch, whatever. It's all there. Just a piercing look at a prayer. It's all energy,
Right.
and it has the capacity to heal.
And maybe you brought this, you just said this, so it came to mind that when people, stare at somebody, a piercing stare, a lot of times people feel that.
Yeah.
Or you're in a
Yeah,
crowd.
be another example.
It'd be another
Yeah.
example of energy when you're in a crowd and somebody's looking at you, and you kind of look around like, who's staring at me? And you see somebody staring at you. That's all energy that's going out there. And I think more and more people are starting to recognize that. But
And another example, if people would just reframe and think of it as energy, is when you put a group of women in the same place and they start menstruating at the same time. There's no explanation for that. I mean, it's not like anybody set it up, it just happens. And
Right.
if we just let go of egotistical analytical thinking, where else can we go with it then? And that's just energy. Why do seeds that are planted in moon phases do better than ones that are randomly planted? I mean, we have examples out there. Maybe what someone needs to do is make the great encyclopedia of energy and start categorizing all these unique elements that we can't explain, but they clearly show that there is an energetic phenomena happening.
and a connection.
Yeah.
A connection to human to human to human. And here again we go back to maybe the example of religions say, well, if we pray for somebody, we'll see a miracle. And so when we as healers are putting out that energy, it's like a prayer to a religion. We are putting out the same healing energy, and it works both ways. So, if prayer works, healing works. And they're both energy, and you can't separate them saying, well, this is because it's, tied to a religious organization or not. It's that healing energy that's going out.
Yeah.
Pat, tell us a little bit about the process of writing these books with Charles, because there's a lot of information in there for people. And I'm sure there was a big process of writing the quantum healing, and then do you want to get better? Can you give us some more information on how?
Yeah, I actually really love the question, because it's, when I look back now, I realize in my early 20s, I started jotting things down, and I was actually inspired by Jimi Hendrix. Because I read
Yeah.
I read about Jimi Hendrix, where Jimi Hendrix carried a notebook everywhere with him, and he'd wake up or he'd be talking to somebody and just stop, pull out his notebook, and he'd write down something. And so I'd buy these little notebooks in Chinatown, the pretty little embroidered notebooks, and I'd write things down. And I started doing that in my 20s, and I just couldn't stop wondering about the big questions, and sometimes I'd write longer stuff, and I'd go back and I'd take the little things, I'd turn them into longer things. And some of those very things end up in a book 40 years later.
Wow. That's wonderful.
And so the process started decades and decades and decades ago. And when I decided, and I had wanted to write some of this stuff for a long time, but just the time wasn't right, evidently. But then when I finally was catalyzed to write it, I just went through much of which I had already transposed onto the computer, and I started just putting it all together in the same place, and then I started like moving stuff around and making groups of things, and so it's this process of ordering, and out of that chapters would grow and ideas would grow. But the interesting part of the process to me is August of 2012, I was running down this stairway in a hotel in Vancouver, Washington, and my shoe caught, and which isn't that unusual. Probably that's happened to everybody, but my shoe caught, and I thought, it'll let go any second, and it was all like slow motion, and then my ankle rolled, and it was still like slow motion. I thought, well, it's gonna be okay now, and then boom, my knee just went, and I was laying down on the stairs, and everybody's trying to help me up, and I'm saying, oh, I don't feel like standing up yet. And immediately my knee blew up to like twice its size, and it stayed that big till like January of the next year.
Wow.
And it just was crushing nerves. It totally debilitated me. I went from someone who just rode my bike most of the time, I'd work out a lot, I felt physically really good, to being able to the amazing thing to me is I never missed a day of work with it.
Wow.
But I was in horrible pain, and I tried one pain pill, and I just felt so horrible. I just like, wow, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
And so I was in this real crisis here of, wow, my life's shattered. I can't do what I want to do all the time.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel like over, but it was definitely like, what do I do? And I had wanted to write these books for a while, and then I had an appointment with a medical intuitive in January that it just all crystallized at that point. Just get these books written, and I walked away from that appointment, and I could walk better than I had walked since before I got hurt. The swelling started going down, and I just started writing.
Wow.
And I really focused on it then, and I just got totally focused. All the writing was done by June for both books.
Whoa, you were going.
Then it took me another 3 months to go through who's the person who organizes it for you?
The editor and stuff?
Not the editor, but I forget the word, but anyway, there was all that dynamics of the business end of it that took another 3 months. But once I just recognized that, well, this was my opportunity to shift from this gear over to this gear. It just happened, and it was very easy. I would write, and I didn't ever have writer's block, and it was never difficult, really. And I just did it. And Charles is the one who had suggested the quantum healing book. He had tried to write it with a couple other chiropractors in the past, I guess, and they just kind of flaked out. They were like, oh, great idea, which I think to most of us this happens a lot. You say something and people are like, oh yeah, that's a great idea, let's do this, and then pretty soon, they're not answering their phone.
Yeah.
And so that's a fairly common thing, but he mentioned it to me, and I said, yeah, I'm going to do that. And so I was the perfect vehicle, as I said earlier, for being able to go back and express to people some of the original philosophical viewpoints of chiropractic, and start to reorient people towards that mindset about chiropractic, because I do fear for chiropractic disappearing and becoming just kind of like the AMA did to the osteopaths back in the 40s, 50s, where they turned them into pill pushers. And they would love to do that to us. They've tried, they failed, and had a big court case they lost in the Supreme Court against us. But now it's happened so subversively. They have so many chiropractors bought into, oh, we can prescribe pills, and we could be primary care doctors and all this. And it's like, so there's enough of those people. We don't want to lose this thing.
Yeah.
And so that was the impetus for that. But that's the process. It really started when I hurt my knee,
and the universe was just kind of saying to you.
And it refused to get better at all until I said, I'm going to write these books.
Well, I got to tell you, I have a similar story, because I hurt my knee, and it didn't get better until I moved to my cabin in the woods where I live now. So, and it was telling me to get out of the rat race.
Yeah.
Because I was in the rat race. So, yeah. It's amazing the way the universe brings us those messages when we're connected, and makes us kind of slow down and say, this is what you need to do now.
Yeah, I think there really is a message with every ailment we ever have.
Absolutely.
Whether it be cancer or slamming your finger in the door of the car.
Whatever it is, there's a message and there's a lesson. Yeah. That's great. That's great. Questions?
Please, if you have any more.
No?
Okay. please gift our audience with one final positive thought or positive affirmation or positive routine. Please gift our audience with one closing thought.
Okay. Well, Pat, in closing, please gift our audience with one closing thought, sentence that will help inspire them, maybe think about things. Yeah.
Oh, this one even kind of gives me chills. I think about this all the time. And I think about my life and being younger and angry and everything. Excuse me.
I know it's okay. I can tell. It's very touching for you.
There's this thing that we really do have buried emotions in our body, and they will just destroy you. They keep you from moving forward. They just tether you to the same place and tether you to the same actions over and over and over. And it is so debilitating. And that when I do the chakra work with people, what I'm doing is I'm trying to get them to let go of the entity that's holding on to them. And the hardest thing for people is to forgive. Eventually it all comes back to your heart chakra. And if you cannot fill everybody you ever perceived to having wronged you with love and compassion and forgiveness, and then with gratitude for what they have given you by allowing you to have this experience, you're stuck, you're tethered. And so the one thing I would tell everybody, if you're angry, if you think someone's wronged you, if there's anything in your life that's not as it should be, in your mind, because that's where it is, in your mind, everything's as it should be. And everything's your opportunity to move forward, but you're not going to move forward until you can take everybody and everything and fill them with love and compassion. And then fill them with forgiveness and gratitude for where they've taken you. And then just cast them out there and allow yourself to start over. Because wherever they're hiding in your body, there are good qualities that are trying to get out. There's qualities in each of the chakra that are going to help you deal with life in a more productive way. But you have to get rid of the bad entities. And it's all love, compassion, forgiveness, and gratitude.
Thank you, Pat. That was beautiful. Thank you so much for being on the show. It was just an honor to be able to interview you.
It was really
and I
fun.
learned so much. Thank you
Yeah, it was
so
really
much.
fun.
All
I
right.
enjoyed it.
So we're closing this session now, and we hope everybody will come back and see us again. We've got some other interviews that are going to be just as great as Pat has been, and more information for you. Thanks.
Okay.
Yay!
We did
Thank
it.
you so much.
You're welcome.
I love that. I mean, God, okay, Shirley, don't cry. Okay, Shirley, don't cry, because that was so.
We should have been saying, okay, Pat, don't cry.
But and you were looking at the camera, which I love, because people could see how sincere you are. That was very. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
It was truly enjoyable doing.
I loved it. A lot of information, a lot of neat stuff. So yeah, you're gonna get a lot of people coming to you. Look out.
It's okay.
Yeah, because I know there are a lot of people who are going to see this, who are going to call you up, because I have been around a lot of people that are now saying, I need to change my diet. I know it's my diet. I know it's my diet. So that's going to be great.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. And, you know, when you sit around and you have the opportunity to actually shut everything out for a while and express yourself in exchange, especially express yourself in an exchange with someone else so you get the stimulation. That's a great learning experience.
Oh, thank you. And we're going to let you know when it comes on,
Okay.
and you can tell all your clients to watch it,
Yeah.
and we'll go from there. That'll be great. Ah,